I just thought that she was a little attractive or whatever. But this woman, who was older than me, by the way, she would say a lot of real slick shit. I'm sorry for cursing. She would say a lot of real slick stuff that made me think she wasn't even human. Like, I know she wasn't human, but she said it, and even at the time when I didn't know that she was non-human, even at the time I would think it's a little weird that she's saying it. Like, you know, back when I was into the whole Hebrew Israelite stuff, but I didn't know about the cloning, I was still, in my last couple years in the military, and she once said something like, so-and-so thinks he's smart, or is smart, or whatever. He knows multiple languages, or he must know multiple languages, or whatever. And I thought that was some, like, really slick, kind of weird stuff. I was like, alright, whatever. And then also, even more to the point, towards the end of my, whole stint in the military or whatever, I had figured out about the cloning, and, again, I'm with this one woman, the same woman, at work, and, she just looks at me and just cracks this, like, non-human, teeth-grinning smile and just goes, "You so smart." And I'm like, oh, man. That actually kind of creeped me out, because I knew, by that point, I knew she was a clone or whatever, and I knew she wasn't human. So I just, I was creeped out. And I had somewhere else to go, but, I just kind of went there extra quick at that point, and I just kind of left the place, and I went outside. But yeah, she was just like, "You're so smart," and like, this is after I had figured out the cloning and all that, and I knew that she wasn't human, and I was creeped out, and so I go to another place. After I left there, I go to another place, and like, these people in this other building that I had to go to, they had a snake as a mascot, and they had like an aquarium with a snake in it. Anyway, I'm in this other building, and I'm talking with some of these people, and they're kind of jokingly calling each other snakes. And then one of them was kind of like, well, who's the biggest snake here? And this is, again, after I had already, figured out about the cloning and all that kind of stuff. So that was kind of weird, But, and eventually, like, a lot of the people, I got whatever paper or whatever I needed from that place. And it was like, I don't too much know about this next part, but it was almost like it was gathering around to send me off or something. And, I think they were all like non-human, and it was all like, oh, you finally figured it out, human boy, congratulations, or something. And, there was this one non-human who almost looked like she was feeling sorry for me or something. But, it was just kind of like, hey, it is what it is, So, I got out of there. Luckily, I didn't really figure out, about the cloning or whatever until my later days in the military, because, I'm not really sure. Hurry up, man. This car is trying to merge in, but he's going so slow. I'm not really sure how much I could have handled it, being, knowing that I'm on military base or post or whatever, and it's like, I'm one of the few humans there, and all the people I work with are blah blah blah, right? And, it just, yeah. But there was another time also where, I'm out processing, basically out of the military, and this one dude, he comes up to me and he starts talking in like, blah 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 blah, people are talking about this, like, Ariana Grande, I think he said, was in the Illuminati or blah blah blah, right? I mean, you don't believe in that, do you? And I'm just looking at this guy like, dude, what the freak are you talking about? Like, you just don't ask someone that, especially not in the military, you know what I mean? It was just really weird. And then the other time was, I have a video on it. It was called, My Battle or something like that against a witch or whatever. And that also happened when I was in the military. But I didn't know about the clones at that point yet. I just figured she was just some regular human who did black magic. And maybe she was, because she didn't really look like a tranny when I picture her in my mind. But maybe, some of them look more like trannies than other ones of them. So she probably wasn't a human either, but she didn't really look that much like a tranny. But at any rate, let's see, what else? There was this one time in the military where, something had happened, and I was just kind of like, oh man, that's cool, like, I'd never seen that before. It was almost like I had seen a quote-unquote UFO, which, UFOs aren't real, okay? Well, UFOs aren't alien spacecraft, they're just fallen angels. But I thought I saw some sort of, weird thing or whatever, and I was like, wow, that's really cool. And I was working at the time, and it was like, it was like, whatever. Well, one of the people who saw it with me, like, at, down the line, they acted like nothing, they kind of lied about what happened, and I'm like, dude, why are you lying about what happened? We didn't report it to anyone, like, we didn't, it was no official log, because, like, if you're in, the military or the government or whatever, and you see a UFO, you usually don't ever tell anyone, because it's like, if you tell someone, it has to be, reported, and you get singled out as being like that guy or whatever, and it just, it's just really weird. But yeah, there are a lot of times looking at my military experience where it was like, I would sometimes come across people who I just knew didn't like me, and I thought maybe it was because I was black. And thinking back on it now, maybe the fact that I was a black human did have something to do with it, because, apparently, black people are the real Hebrews from what I've researched. But it was beyond that. It was the fact that I was just a human being, a real human being, was what was really bothering them. Because I'll be out in society, and there'll be, allegedly black people that I'm looking at or dealing with or whatever, and I know they hate my guts because they're not human, and I am. You know what I mean? So, I'm human. So it's like, they just hate my guts. So, sometimes, when you're out somewhere and you think people hate you because of your race or whatever, it may just be that they hate you because you're actually human and, you know, they're not, okay? So yeah, you know. So anyway, you know, I kind of get out and, you know, I go back to college and, you know, there's, you know, I'm in a class, right? And it's like a philosophy class. And, you know, they say something so weird. And the philosophy teacher, he goes, you know, let's say that God wants to spend, you know, forever and ever with you. And like he just gives this smile, this kind of this weird non-human smile. It's like everyone's looking at me and smiling or whatever. But at this point, you know, this is like 2016, I had already figured out about the cloning or whatever. And, you know, I just kind of roll along with it. But also in the military, another thing, you know, I'm talking with this guy, and, you know, we're talking together, and, you know, he seems like a biblical guy, right? So I guess we're talking maybe about, you know, religion or the Bible or whatever. And I'm thinking it's cool because, you know, he seems like a Christian or whatever. And, you know, I'm talking with him, and, you know, he says something about, you know, if I'm 144 good, and he gives this laugh, and I'm like, no, I'm not that good. But this was before I had figured out about the cloning. So I think he was non-human, seeing that I was human too. I don't know. But that was just a really, looking back on it, it was a kind of weird crack. But another time, man, there are plenty of times, you know, I would be, you know, working like a, you know, a temp job, cleaning it, you know, being like a janitor at a stadium or whatever. And like, you know, these people, they would come up to me and talk to me after I had already known about the cloning or whatever. And they would be looking at me with like, you know, snake eyes or frog eyes. They would be shape-shifting their eyes. And I guess it was because, you know, I already knew they wasn't human, so they may as well, you know, do some weird crap on me that they don't do with a normal person. I don't know. And I've had a lot of that, actually, you know, people kind of shape-shifting their eyes to me. Like, because it's like, you know, I already know they're not human, so whatever. You know, this is only after I figured out about the cloning. Like, it didn't happen to me prior to 2016. But, you know, since 2016, I've had a couple people kind of shape-shift their eyes or whatever to let me know they're not human. Like, you know, like they want me to know or whatever. But I go about that more in my shape-shifting video. Man, it's just a lot of situations, probably too many to count. You know, just, you know, people, you know, I would be, you know, with another temp job, and, you know, I was kind of working with these, like, you know, two white chicks, but they were, you know, clones, but they weren't stupid, so they were probably like fallen angels. And, you know, we would have to, you know, drive around to different places and, like, stock them, basically, with supplies or whatever. And, you know, sometimes I would be out with them, and it would be like, I would be thinking in my mind, like, you know, like everyone's looking at me, you know, all mad because I'm dating some white girl or whatever. and you know, she's a fallen angel. She's like a non-human anyway. But like, you know, it would almost be like, I don't know if it was in my head or what. Like they would be looking at me all, you know, mad or whatever, and I would just be thinking in my head like, I'm not dating them. I'm just working with them. Like, damn, guys. And it would almost be like they would hear it, especially, you know, the girls I was working with, I think. And, you know, one of them, I think, was like, you know, kind of proud that she was working with, like, one of the few, maybe, humans left on this, you know, I don't want to say one of the few humans left on this planet, but, I mean, there's more humans than just me, of course. But, I mean, maybe humans are only 5 or 3% of the population, okay? But, I mean, it's possible, maybe even less, I don't know. But, she seemed, like, kind of proud to be working with me or whatever, and I would just have to think in my mind to all those people who I thought was looking at us all, you know, whatever, like, we are just co-workers, like, geez, guys. You know, it was kind of funny. But it was another case where I was with those same girls, and you know, we was with this one vendor who was also like a white female, but I don't think she was actually human. She was probably like a demon or a fallen angel or whatever. And you know, she makes this crack about I mean, dang, I kind of forget. It was like a crack about, you know, being on the lookout for vampires or something like that. And this was like in 2017. So at this point, I'm thinking like vampires were, I'm thinking that meant like, you know, RH negative people, you know. And so, you know, I almost thought, you know, I don't drink human blood or anything like that. I'm not like Demon Master. I'm just a real human, you know. That guy drinks human blood because he's non-human. But, you know, I just thought that all RH negative people were vampires regardless of if they drunk blood or not. So, you know, I thought she was a non-human talking about me, you know. But she might have been talking about, you know, the girl or the girls I was with. I don't know. But I've also had, like, people, you know, drive by me, and, like, I was working with them, and, like, you know, we was in a car going to the next place we had to stop, and someone, like, honked their horn, and, like, we had the windows rolled down, and it was like they was honking their horn at me. I don't know if they just did it because they saw me and they was just, you know, honking their horn because, you know, I'm a real human and I had survived to this point. I don't know. Survived with my soul intact or whatever. Also, we were driving together and, you know, I see this, like, this guy, you know, allegedly Mexican, but he wasn't really Mexican. He was just like a Robotoid or whatever. And he's driving, and it was like he was processing something. And I mentioned it, like, you know, I said, like, he's loading. And those other two girls, they got really freaking quiet. It was like, oh shit. Like, they got really freaking quiet. Sorry for cursing again. But they was like, you know, really quiet. Like, oh crap, he, you know. They must have already known that I knew. But I guess it was kind of weird that I had actually mentioned something about, you know, joked about someone being a Robotoid or whatever. But, you know, I was kind of funny. And for those wondering, no, I've never dated a white girl, okay? My only girlfriend was black, so they were just girls I worked with. which I just had to keep saying in my mind because, I mean, otherwise these clones were just all mad that I was taking their clone women or something. I don't know. But, at any rate, there was another time where I was driving alone, and this one woman from across the intersection saw me, and she started clapping. And, you know, I don't know if she was on Bluetooth. You know, I don't know what was quite going on. But in my mind, I don't even know if she was truly non-human. But in my mind, I was thinking she was a non-human clapping because I was a real human and I had still, you know, kept my soul intact or whatever. That's what I was thinking in my mind. Because some of these, like, non-humans that I meet in the streets, they'll respond to me different. Like, some will, I know they hate my guts, and some will, like, have a varying levels of respect that, like, I'm, you know, trying to be right with God. Like, there was this one who was like an old white man. Well, that's what he looked like. But I don't think he was really, you know, he was probably like a fallen angel or whatever. Because these things, they can see your soul. They can see your aura, right? And, you know, when I go out, when I pray and I go out into society, I get looked at way different than if my aura is a bit more, has a bit more evil or negativity attached to it. You know, they don't quite look at me the same as they do when I go out into society, and I've been praying for a long time. But I had been praying for a long time, and I was with a brother who I'm pretty sure is you know, they're not human, but he almost seemed like relieved to see me, and he was all, you know, let me get the door for you, and he was, you know, being kind of nice, I think, maybe, but I don't think he was human either. But I think he was just kind of maybe surprised or half relieved to see an actual human who hadn't lost his soul yet. And I think some of them are like that, and they maybe have some level of respect, you know, for a human who's managed to last this long with his soul. And, you know, there was another time, you know, I'm at this, you know, church, and, you know, this clone pastor, you know, he's putting hands on people, and I kind of don't want to go. He's like a guest pastor, you know, and I kind of don't want to go up there because I'm like, you know, I think he's going to do some black magic to me. But somehow or another, you know, they kind of, you know, suggest that I just get up there, like, it's no big deal, they're not going to do anything to you, or something like that. I go up there, he starts calling me Ak, which is, you know, sometimes you'll see, like, Hebrew Israelites call another man, like, Ak, which is basically Hebrew for brother, and he calls me Ak, and he starts saying some stuff to me, like he knew I was a real human, you know, and that I was worried that he was going to put some black magic on me, but he didn't. I don't think he did it because, you know, I've had people, like, I've shooken hands with people, and I've had them, like, transfer evil energy to me before, so I kind of know when people are doing it. But, you know, I don't think he did it because I would have felt it. But, you know, he was all like, you know, good luck, Ak, and stuff like that. And, you know, there was this other woman who was in the church who was non-human too. And she looked like she was halfway mad at me, I guess, because I had still had my soul. And this was like in 2017. But she was like, you know, she was basically like, you know, may you get what you deserve. You know, which, you know, is kind of like a weird statement to someone because, you know, that could be either good or bad, you know. Like, and I had seen her, you know, years ago, you know, and I guess she may have figured that I had probably lost my soul like a lot of other humans from back in the day, but, you know, I still had my soul, and so she was just kind of like, you know, may you get what you deserve, and it was just kind of like, oh, okay. And also, you know, there was this time in 2016 when I was trying to tell my cousin, my favorite cousin, about like these non-humans and what have you, and basically, the next day he acted like he didn't believe it or whatever. But he acted real demonic, actually, when I was trying to tell him about that. You know, I was trying to tell him about the cloning. You know, I was trying to tell him about, you know, the Hebrew Israelite stuff. And, you know, one day he was acting real receptive to it. And then the next day he started acting really demonic. And I was just thinking, oh, well, he's drunk and there's a demon being channeled through him. I wasn't ready to think that my cousin was that he was my favorite cousin. I wasn't really willing to think that he was non-human. So I'm like, oh, he's just channeling a demon or whatever. And, you know, he's being real demonic. And then the next day after that, you know, we're outside and some younger cousins are bouncing on a trampoline, and he goes, you know, I was using the term imposters, right? And then he goes, you know, sure are a lot of imposters around, G. And I'm like, what? And you know, he just kept saying it. Sure are a lot of imposters around. And then he asked me if I heard what he said, and I'm like, yeah, I heard what you said. And I knew that you know, he was an imposter too, along with my younger cousin, because you know, most of these young kids out there, you know, 15 years ago, maybe 10% of the kids were human, but now it's probably like 1% or less, okay? It's not very many human babies being born on the face of the earth right now, right? And, you know, it was just, you know, creeping me out. You know, my favorite cousin, you know, who I tried to tell about the cloning, being a clone himself. It was like, you know, sheesh, man. You know what I mean? And after that, I don't think I've ever told another person in real life about the cloning. The last time I told a person was like a year and a half ago with that same cousin who turned out to be a non-human himself. And maybe I just got so scared because that backfired on me that I just haven't told anyone in real life about the cloning. Like, I might talk about Christ to a person. I might maybe talk about, you know, the Hebrew Israelite stuff, but I haven't talked to any other person in real life since, like, you know, summer of 2016 about, like, the cloning stuff, because the one time I did it, the person that was a clone themselves. And, you know, I've gotten a lot better at spotting who is and who isn't a clone, but, you know, maybe just that thought that I could be talking about this in real life to a guy or a woman who's a clone themselves, it just kind of irks me, right? So yeah, and there's another time, I'm working like another temp job. I'm doing like like this huge dance carnival, like this huge electronic music festival or whatever. And, I'm supposed to be like, making sure, the morning afterwards, where everyone's probably, maybe a little high or a little drunk or a little this or a little that, I'm supposed to be kind of walking large groups of people from the stadium they was partying at to their buses to take them to their hotels. And while I'm doing it, I'm kind of like counting how many people were actually clones. And this is back, this is like in spring or summer 2016. So, I'm kind of new to the cloning stuff, when I'm doing this, because it was so long ago. But I knew about it, and I was kind of counting how many people were actually clones. And, back then, I was kind of thinking like 25 or 30% of the people were clones, which, I wasn't as good, and, I was counting real fast, and I was just looking at faces real fast, and all that. But the other thing is, like, when I was looking at people's faces in the crowd, trying to figure out whether or not they was a clone or not, a lot of them was, like, looking down, and a lot of them was, like, looking to the side, or they seemed, like, ashamed. Yeah, that's a good word. They seemed, like, ashamed that, like, I knew they wasn't real, or, like, I was trying to figure out they wasn't real. Like, they was ashamed of it, and they was like, it seemed to really bother them. I think not all these tears are the same. Some of them probably really want to pretend like they're real humans and this and that, but they're not. You know what I mean? And if someone figures out they're not human, they probably feel kind of ashamed or a certain type of way about it. But I'm sure there's plenty others that I can think of where these non-humans kind of like single me out as far as me being a real human, and me knowing just A, me being a real human, and B, me eventually being a real human who knows that they're not a real human, right? And, there's probably plenty of, other experiences in my life where, I can think of, and they are, where, like, people are kind of gathered together and kind of look at me, a certain type of way, or saying slick stuff to me, and it's just, it is what it is. It is what it is. When I was doing that stalking job, some person remarked that I still, it wasn't the two ladies it wasn't the two girls that I usually work with, it was an older lady. She remarked that I still kind of looked like a child or something. And this was back in 2017. So, I'm pretty sure they all knew who I was. And, like, if you're a human and you know about this cloning thing, everyone in your city, every clone anyway, they all probably know that you're not really, that you're different, that you're not like the other humans, and to treat you different. They all probably know that. There's just probably many other occasions in my life where some of these, these non-humans they kind of look at me different or funny because I'm a real human. And eventually I was a real human who figured it out that, you know, they weren't human. So, you know, just something to consider, you know. If you're a real human, you know, hope you really like this video and maybe take some of it into consideration. Because if you're a real human, I'm almost positive you've had situations like this where it was like there was a huge joke and everyone was in on it but you, and you didn't really know what was going on. Well, the joke is most people aren't human and you are. And they know who you are, but you know, you don't know who you are until you do. And then it's just a whole nother level of them dealing with you kind of weird. And there was another case, probably one of the more recent ones, maybe like a couple weeks ago before Christmas. You know, I'm going in, you know, I'm buying some supplies for Christmas Eve. I didn't Christmas shop for anyone because I don't celebrate Christmas. But, you know, I'm buying some supplies because I know all the stores are going to be closed on Christmas. And, you know, some people, like, you know, there was a group of you know, what looked like college-age kids. And, but they were all non-human. But, you know, I guess, you know, the clone girls told the clone boys to kind of screw with me a little bit. Because I do think, you know, a lot of times, you know, these non-humans, you know, when they're here on the earth, they're just kind of living their lives and, you know, they're kind of pretending to be human. But they know they're not human, but they, you know, they're living their lives pretending to be human. And I guess, you know, maybe living as a pretend human on Earth might be better than, you know, being in hell or something. So they, you know, they try to enjoy their time on the Earth. And, you know, I guess two of the clone girls was telling, like, some of the clone dudes to kind of mess with me a little bit. And, you know, the clone dudes, they come up real quick behind me and they overtake me, kind of walking like robots, but like in a mocking kind of way, you know? Like in a mocking kind of way, like, you know, oh, you're that kid who knows about all the clones, huh? Well, we're gonna kind of creep you out. And you know, the dudes was kind of laughing, and I looked back, and like, the clone girls were kind of laughing, and like, I was kind of laughing a little bit too, because, I mean, you know, it is what it is, isn't it? It is what it is. I mean, they can't, like, run up on you and kill you or anything like that, so at least there's that, you know. It is what it is. These clones are gonna kind of creep you out, and some people might call something like that gang stalking, but again, I've done, you know, a really good video on gang stalking, if you're curious about that. It's really just boils down to these non-humans creeping out humans when they can, you know what I mean? And, you know, it is what it is. But anyway, you know, that's my video. I've got a lot of other videos coming up. There's this guy called, like, I don't know, like Demon Master or something. You know, I'm really gonna, you know, the next day or two, really gonna go on this assault against him. You know, I'm back from vacation, and, you know, really, he's been making a lot of videos about me, talking a lot of crap, and, you know, I'm gonna bring him a beef that he can't win, and we're gonna, you know, gonna slay that dragon. But, you know, until then, you know, I got some other kind of videos I'm gonna do, and, you know, I hope you guys like them, and, yeah, see you guys later. Peace.